You stand in the dim light of the Vienna treasury. The air is cool, 12 degrees Celsius, like a crypt. Before you is a spear with a nail, covered in a greenish patina. You reach out your hand, and then you remember, in your pocket is a copy of an order, signed by Hitler on March 12, 1938. The owner of the spear cannot be defeated. This is not fiction. This is a fact. 48 hours after the Anschluss of Vienna, SS officers burst into the Hofburg, not for gold, not for crowns, for this piece of rusty iron, for a relic that, according to legend, pierced the side of Jesus on Golgotha, for a weapon whose power lies in the very faith the Nazis swore to destroy. Your palms are sweating. Your heart pounds. Hitler hated Christianity. He called it a Jewish disease. He ordered crosses removed from schools. His ideologue, Rosenberg, dreamed of a pagan Reich with runes instead of prayers. Yet it was Hitler who ordered the lance of Longinus to be guarded, an artifact whose legitimacy stemmed from the very faith that was supposed to vanish. The myth lives on, because we are afraid. Imagine an empire of tanks, rockets, concentration camps, and at its heart, magical thinking. Not strategy, not logic, ancient superstition. Hitler believed that as long as the spear was in his hands, he was invincible. Like Charlemagne, like Napoleon, like the Habsburgs before him. But here's where it gets interesting. In April 1945, the day before Hitler swallowed a cyanide capsule, Americans found the spear in Nuremberg Castle. Abandoned. Forgotten. As if its power had vanished along with the belief in it. Remember this moment. This is not a story about the supernatural. It's a story about how even the most powerful dictators become slaves to their own fears. Do you think myths died with the Third Reich? Look around. Who today builds empires on symbols, not on truth? Your fingers tremble, not from the cold, from recognition. Golgotha, dust, cries. The air shimmers with heat and groans. You feel a sticky mix of sweat and dust on your skin, and in your nose, the smell of iron and the vinegar given to the dying. At the foot of the cross stands a Roman centurion. His name, Longinus. He is not a saint. He is a soldier. He was ordered to ensure the crucified man was dead. He raises his spear, a simple pilum, with an iron tip, thousands like it in the legion. And then, a sharp thrust. The point plunges into the side. From the wound gushes not just blood, a stream of scarlet water and dark blood. A drop touches Longinus's eyes, and at that moment he sees, not with his eyes, with his soul. Truly, this was the Son of God. Do you hear those words? They don't sound like a prayer. They sound like a judgment on a world where power no longer lies in the legion, but in faith. From that strike, the spear ceases to be a weapon. it becomes a witness. And a witness is always dangerous. But myth demands material embodiment. That's why, in the 17th century, a nail was embedded in the spearhead. Not just any nail, the very one from Golgotha, the Latin inscription Clavis Domini, the nail of the Lord. Now, the spear is not just a symbol, it is a battery of divine power. A double charge, it pierced the body and contains the instrument of execution. Imagine you are an emperor. Your armies suffer defeats. Your throne is shaking. But in your hands is the spear that touched the flesh of Christ. Is this not a right to power? Not a guarantee that God is on your side? This is exactly what Charlemagne, Barbarossa, and the Habsburgs thought. For them, the spear was not a relic. It was a weapon of legitimacy. As long as it was with you, you ruled by the will of heaven. Lose it, and you would fall, like Judas, and now you. Do you know that feeling? When everything is falling apart, and you cling to one symbol, a photograph, an amulet, a phrase, just to believe everything is still under control. The Nazis were no exception. They hated the church, but they trembled before the nail from Golgotha. Because magical thinking doesn't choose ideology, it chooses fear. And this is where it gets interesting. The Habsburgs transformed the Vienna treasury not into a museum, but into an altar. The lance of Longinus stood at its center, like a throne. Everyone who looked at it saw not metal, but a prophecy. You stand there now. Your fingers tremble, not from the cold, from the realization history is not moved by tanks. It is moved by symbols, and whoever holds them believes they hold destiny itself. But symbols are like mirrors. They don't show strength. They show fear. Vienna Hofburg, late 16th century. You ascend a narrow spiral staircase into the tower of Emperor Rudolf II. The air is thick with sulfur, rose oil, and the dust of star charts. In the corner, an alchemical crucible smolders. On the table are scrolls with runes, skulls, globes. Rudolf doesn't believe in treaties. He believes in signs. And the main sign is the lance of Longinus. He orders it moved from Nuremberg to Vienna, not to a cellar, not to an archive, but directly into the heart of the treasury, to a place where the light falls, as if the heavens themselves illuminate the relic. For him, it's not an antiquity. It's an antenna catching a divine signal. As long as the spear is here, the Turks won't take Vienna. The Protestants won't tear the empire apart. And chaos won't swallow the throne. Do you smell it? Sulfur, fear, hope. The Habsburgs were not foolish. They lived in an era when faith was torn apart. Reformation, counter-reformation, pyres, heretics. In such a world, words mean nothing. Proof is needed. And the spear became that proof. Not a word, metal. Not a sermon, a nail from Golgotha. An inventory record from 1590 clearly states, Lancea Sacra, Regalia Imperii. Sacred spear, imperial regalia. On par with the crown, with the scepter, with the mantle. This was a political move disguised as reverence. Possess the spear and God himself will sign your decree. But the church remained silent. It did not approve. For centuries, Rome insisted, holy relics are not for thrones. They are for altars, for prayers, not for intrigues. But the Habsburgs gambled on the myth and won for 2.5 centuries. Have you ever seen fear transform into a symbol? In 1803, after secularization, the church lost control. The spear definitively passed into secular hands. It became a museum exhibit, dusty, silent. It seemed the myth was dead. But the myth didn't die. It merely waited. It waited for someone who would once again believe metal can rule the world. Someone who would once again decide that history isn't about ideas, but about artifacts. And such a person would appear, in a uniform, with a black swastika. The Habsburg Empire would collapse in 1918. Vienna would become the capital of a small republic. The spear would remain in the treasury, a reminder of past glory. But myths don't age. They sleep. And in the 1930s, a man in Berlin opened archives, read legends, studied maps. He wasn't looking for God. He was looking for a weapon that doesn't fire, but makes millions believe. His name was Heinrich Himmler, and he knew true power doesn't begin with tanks, but with a spear. Berlin, 1935. The green light of a lampshade cuts through the darkness of an office. Himmler signs an order. Not for deportation, not for a purge, for the creation of Ahnenerbe, a scientific factory for producing myths. On the table are not only maps of Tibet, but also a copy of the Vienna inventory record, Lancea Sacra. Sacred spear. His fingers dig into the paper, as if he already holds the metal. Do you feel that cold? Not from the air conditioning. From the realization science has become a servant of magic. Ahnenerbe was no eccentric club. It was a state machine. 30 expeditions, a budget of 40 million Reichsmarks. The same as the early nuclear program. Not for a bomb, for magic. Archaeologists dug in Sweden. Linguists deciphered runes. Anthropologists measured skulls. All to prove Aryans were gods, and their weapons were real. Ahnenerbe's archival documents clearly stated the Lance of Longinus was object number 1 in the world domination category, not a legend. A strategic resource. Can you imagine? A rational system built on logic and racial tables, spending millions to find a nail from Golgotha. Why? Because a myth without scientific confirmation is just a fairy tale. But with it, it's a weapon of legitimacy. If the laboratory says the artifact is charged, then it works, even if it's a rusty spearhead, especially if it's a rusty spearhead. For fear believes what is confirmed by a seal. Hitler publicly mocked occultism. But in the Führerbunker, he kept an astrological calendar, and he knew the prophecy, whoever possesses the spear possesses the world. Not because he read the Bible, because Charlemagne won with it. Napoleon lost when he lost it. The magic here isn't in the metal, it's in the conviction. And the Nazis built an entire science to convince themselves they were invincible. But the most important expedition didn't go to the Himalayas. It stayed home. Vienna was only 600 kilometers away. The spear waited in the Hofburg under glass and dust. For Himmler, it wasn't a museum exhibit. It was a deactivated reactor. And he knew as soon as Germany took Austria, it had to be switched on. You stand in that same room today. Your fingers don't reach for the glass, but you still check if the nail is in place, because a part of you still believes if the relic is intact, the world can still be saved. And the Nazis, they weren't looking for God. They were looking for a switch to, by flicking it, stop the chaos. But magic doesn't work with a button. It works with fear. And the more you believe in an artifact, the weaker you become without it. Vienna Hofburg, March 12th, 1938. You stand by the display case. Behind the glass, the spear with the nail covered in a greenish patina. Outside, crowds. Some shout, "Heil!" Others hide their stars. And inside, silence. Right up until the moment the doors burst open. SS officers storm in, black uniforms, boots like heartbeats, without warning, without stopping. They walk straight to you. More precisely, to the spear. An officer pulls out an order with Himmler's seal. Retrieve the relic immediately. 2 hours later, the spear is in an armored van. Double bottom, escort, siren. 48 hours later, in Berlin. Faster than arsenals were seized. Faster than headquarters were occupied. Fact, museum workers recorded. The SS didn't touch the crown or the scepter. Only the spear. Do you know that feeling? When everything is falling apart, and you grasp at one object, as if it holds reality together. The Nazis thought the same. For them, it wasn't metal. It was a shield. Magical. Impenetrable. Legend has it, the owner of the lance of Longinus cannot be defeated. Not a metaphor. Not poetry. A strategic imperative. Hitler knew. Charlemagne won with it. Napoleon lost when he lost it. Therefore, as long as the spear is in his hands, the Reich is eternal. But here's where it gets interesting. The convoy was given priority over everything, even over ammunition trains. While tanks stood at stations, the van with the spear sped non-stop. The special unit, Sonderkommando Ahnenerbe, was created not for espionage, but for transporting sacred artifacts. Can you imagine? In a world where everything is measured in tons of steel and liters of gasoline, A myth became more important than bullets. Because war isn't just about armor. It's about belief. Even if you believe in your own lies, the spear was taken away, the museum emptied. But the myth remained, and it waited for the day when belief would disappear. That day came. April 30th, 1945. Americans find the spear in Nuremberg, abandoned, forgotten, as if its power died with the one who believed in it. And you still think symbols are just symbols? Look at your hands. What do you hold when you lose control? Nuremberg, April 1945. The city is an ash heap. 90% of the facades are in dust. You stand among the debris where SS officers marched just yesterday. The air is smoke and damp concrete. In the castle cellar, beneath boxes of charred maps, two Americans stumble upon a shaft. The oak has darkened with age. The spearhead, dull yet ominous, and in it, the nail with a greenish patina. The Latin inscription, Clavis Domini, the nail of the Lord. Can you imagine? A soldier, a former Yale student, touches the metal, and in that moment, he understands, if the legend is true, Hitler has already lost. Not tomorrow, not in May, but right now. Because the spear is not with him. There's the irony of ruins for you. A regime built on tanks and propaganda fell because of belief in a rusty nail. Do you think this is absurd? They didn't. For the Nazis, the spear wasn't a symbol. It was the switch for invincibility, and it was pulled from the socket. On April 30th, at 2:20 p.m., the spear was found, 6 hours before the shot in the Berlin bunker. Hitler dies, thinking he lost his magical protection. But the truth is harsher. He lost back in December 1941. When he got stuck outside Moscow. Strategy broke down long before the myth crumbled into ash. Are your palms sweating? Imagine you are a dictator. Your empire is collapsing, and in the cellar, an artifact that, according to rumors, saves from doom. You hide it, but you're too late. The enemy raises it above the ruins, and the whole world sees the magic didn't work. The Nazis themselves hammered the nail into their own coffin. They turned the spear into a condition for victory, and when they lost it, the condition disappeared. Along with it, the belief in the Reich. It wasn't the army that broke them. Their own myth broke them. But myths don't die. They await a new owner. The spear returned to Vienna in 1946. Clean, polished. But you know the truth. Metal doesn't grant power. It only shows how much it's lacking. Look at your hands. What do you hold when everything falls apart? An amulet? Your phone? An old photograph? You too are searching for your nail of the Lord. You just don't call it that. London, 1973. You leaf through a book in a dusty shop on Baker Street. The cover, dark red, like dried blood. On it, a spear piercing Hitler's shadow. The title, The Spear of Destiny. The author, Trevor Ravenscroft, a former intelligence officer who claims Hitler lost the war because he lost the relic, not because of strategy, not because of tanks, because of a rusty nail. At first, everyone laughs, but by the end of the year, the book is read in the Pentagon, in Moscow's archives, in underground circles in Munich. The Cold War rages. The world trembles on the brink of nuclear apocalypse. And suddenly, a simple answer. Everything depends on one artifact. Do you feel that tremor? It's not curiosity. It's relief. Because chaos is easier to bear if there's a hidden order behind it. Today, this myth is not dead. It has mutated. You go on YouTube and see videos, the lance of Longinus activated during the lunar eclipse. You go to a forum and read, the CIA keeps it in a basement under Las Vegas. Artificial intelligence, they say, supposedly analyzes its energy signature. Laboratories prove the metal is medieval, but millions believe that doesn't matter. Why? Because myth isn't about truth. It's about fear. And the more pandemics, wars, collapses, the stronger the craving for a magical switch. Do you think this is foolish? Look at yourself. When everything falls apart, you don't look for reports. You look for a sign, a coincidence, an amulet, an algorithm that predicts everything. This is your spear. And here's where it gets interesting. In 2003, the University of Vienna X-rayed the relic. Result, the spearhead, 13th century. The nail, inserted during Rudolph II's reign. No Golgotha, no Jesus, just iron, set into a shaft for effect. But you still check if the nail is in place when you pass the display case. Because the truth about the metal isn't important. What's important is the belief that behind it is power. Especially if you want power, or are afraid of losing it. Myth is a mirror of our time. In an age of disinformation, where every algorithm is a new priest, we haven't stopped believing in spears. We've just renamed them. Now it's data, code, secret meetings. But the essence is the same. Give me the artifact, and I will stop the chaos. But chaos doesn't stop. It waits until you stop believing in your spear. Berlin, July 1944. You sit in the Führer bunker. The walls shake from explosions. On the table, a map crisscrossed with red. The Red Army in Warsaw, the Allies in Paris, and in the corner, under a black cloth, the spear. Hitler stands, approaches. His fingers touch the shaft. He doesn't pray. He checks. He checks if the magic has disappeared. For he ordered the relic to be guarded like a nuclear code. But reason whispers, you have lost. And fear screams, no, as long as the spear is here. And at that moment, the dictator, who built an empire on science and hatred, becomes the last believer in a Christian relic that he himself declared an enemy. Do you know that feeling? When everything is falling apart, and you still hope that one object will save you. This isn't weakness. It's an illusion of control, a psychological trick of the brain. When chaos takes over, you grab a symbol, as if it's an undo button for disaster. Hitler didn't believe in God. He believed in order. But when order disintegrated, he chose magic. Not out of faith, out of desperation. And he wasn't alone. Ahnen Erbe's archives are not a collection of nonsense. They are a catalog of fear. 30 expeditions, 40 million Reichsmarks. Not for tanks, for runes, for skulls, for nails. Because even the coldest minds, standing at the precipice, look for a miracle. Imagine, your boss in a crisis suddenly starts wearing a lucky tie. Your friend believes an algorithm will save him from being fired. You yourself check your horoscope before an important decision. It's the same thing. You don't believe in stars. You're afraid that everything will get out of control. The spear is not an artifact. It is a test, and Hitler failed it. Not when the spear fell, but when he began to believe that it could save him. True strength is not in holding a symbol, but in standing without it, in emptiness, in uncertainty. That is courage. But he chose illusion, and he lost not the war, but himself. And now, you. What is your spear? Your phone with notifications? An ideology where everything is black and white? A leader who will solve everything? The spear does not grant power. It exposes the craving for it. It shows how much you fear being ordinary, vulnerable, human. And this truth, it's about us, not about Hitler, not about the Habsburgs, about you, right now. Are your palms sweating? Good. It means you haven't hidden behind a symbol yet. It means you can still choose to believe in the myth or to accept reality. You stand again in the dim light of the Vienna treasury. 12 degrees Celsius. The same cold as in 1938. Behind the glass, the spear. The nail is in place. The patina hasn't changed. But you are no longer the same person who walked in here at the beginning. Because now you know the spear doesn't grant power. It draws out fear. Like a magnet draws iron filings.